What I find so dope about all of this is it highlights everything that brought me to the city and aspects that challenges I've always endured in my life. And it's like I finally get to document it. And it blows my mind. Because when I sit back and evaluate it, I would be like someone outside of myself would be like, hey, it's you. Maybe, it's something you do, something you said, and nobody will believe it. Turns out just as it does. It's no catalyst needed. It's just something about me. What did it say? Something about Mary. Something about me that brings the ultimately the most interesting energy out of people and reactions to my energy. In contrast, I guess it brings out the truth, the core in people, something about me. I just, either which way, yeah. So I was put out of that situation forcefully. Many important signatures were signed in order to sign off on that, and put out on their terms only. And when I became a thorn in their side, or caught on to their crimes rather, and only after getting into the women's Tillery that was then located in Manhattan at the time, due to the lockdown. This was actually a shelter which was originally, well, still, located in Brooklyn. And they were so, when I say they, I mean my caseworker, Casilda Laura, the director over the caseworkers, Director Sabla, and housing specialist Miss Marston, were all very much obsessed with getting me in Brooklyn. A lot of the black clients I noticed specifically being ushered automatically into East New York, and you would only truly see them go to work for the white and Spanish clients, getting them in actual, better boroughs, whether that would be Queens or sometime Jersey. You would see the resources really be put to work for other races, and this effort to redline you, me, people that look like me, even though where I was, there was no one that looked like me. So I think they found an extra thrill in being able to keep me, in a certain proximity. It was almost, in other words, punish me for being me. Different. Not broken, to create the conditions upon which would break me. Have you lost in Brooklyn, somewhere where your screams can never be heard? Either which way, that it was initially located at my initial move in Manhattan, they knew that that would be the only way to get me out. And from that point, I actually was set up with my own room, had my laundry being done for me, a relatively not bad life it was, other than some of the other residents, the staff at times. But I felt like when they were at this location, they were sort of on their best behavior. And that it was only after my arrival that I found out that this was a place specifically for the mentally debilitated. Primarily, that there were a few and far and in between people there from a general population. And so this definitely coincides with everything I've stated from the gate of my experience. And that from there, it became a challenge for me to advocate for myself in the midst of, having my life shattered, furthermore, by the staff of a shelter, you know. And so within a few weeks, I sought for myself a personal psych evaluation, which I passed with flying colors. And in no time flat was issued as a person, or relegated as a person, a part of the general population. Although when they found this information out, it should have been their duty to verify and validate everything I spoke with them about in regards to my former shelter, because crimes were committed and lies were told, and that I should have been immediately transferred out of this environment. However, during this time, because I came in with a housing voucher, I pressed them, and thereafter was able to find housing, not of my own, but at least of a room for rent. I was found this place by a Carla Thurchier, who no longer works for the Tillery. She introduced me to a Carlene Edwards at Carlene's workplace, also in Queens, somewhere on Merrick Boulevard. During that interview, it seemed to go pretty well. I noticed Carlene mentioning, a current roommate, and so that was unusual that they're looking to rent a room, that there's somebody currently living in, and the ways in which to get rid of that roommate. Definite red flag. Either which way that seemingly worked out for me, and for the next months that is where I would reside. About 4 months into my residence, I noticed the roommates of mine saving everything, cluttering up every area, including their own personal areas, and that they were both hoarders, Miss Nora and Cece. This was far different from how Miss Carlene Edwards introduced the place to me. She mentioned how very clean these ladies were. It was anything but, is what I discovered throughout the journey. And just as a result of how the ladies were living, it deemed the place uninhabitable. These were the words of a Terminix pest control guy that came out and viewed the place, and deemed it having an infestation. This information I relayed to my then landlord at the time, Lester Crawford. From there, the relationship and my stay in that place would never be the same. And at some point, I met a gentleman who I relate some of these things to, some of these challenges I was facing in the residence, and that he came out with me to just check things out, and admitted from the gate that he thought that I was possibly exaggerating on things, and maybe spoiled. Again, those misinterpretations and judgments that people make sometimes, just looking at you. And actually came out to the proper property with me, and was immediately deterred and disturbed by the backdrop and the makeup of the place, and mentioned to me that it was unusual that the landlord would have installed motion sensor lights only after I moved in, and that the curtains were transparent, that he said it felt like a show, and that myself and the ladies were that show. And I could have lost track of time how many times I saw the various men in the neighborhood looking over into the apartment, watching the apartment, including the landlord. Lastly, this man mentioned that I am getting speculations that you all are being videotaped and watched. Now, I knew that there were videotapes, outside of the apartment, but who is to say that somehow in those motion sensor lights, we weren't? Who is to say that these aren't the very real challenges of being single women, unprotected? The landlord lived right under us in the basement, forever watching us, come and go, on the camera outside, but who's to say there weren't more? This man's intuitive was off the charts. Let's just say that. And that there was a time that I actually unplugged a motion sensor and was immediately text messaged to not do that by the landlord. How he would know that is eerie. Again, in the situation, I felt that the landlord was obsessed with me, interacting and engaging with me, just seeing me would start to let himself into the apartment. I have video of that without knocking or letting anyone know that he was there. So walking out of my room to just seeing him, instances of him blocking my ability to enter the apartment, that time in which I called the police. Overall, I think that I was whistleblowing in that situation. One of the key factors that Miss Edwards even mentioned being reluctant to rent to me for was that I wasn't elderly, nor did I suffer any mental debilities. And so, guys, what I'm saying and all of what I'm saying is that I became a secret agent for the mental debilitated of this city and state. And through envy and hate, I gained a behind the scenes perspective now on the real processes and happenings, not only in the shelter systems, but in the people and places that gravitate to them and make money off of them. And so me having all of my faculties was a reluctant factor for them running out to me. And again, made me a target and someone that they quickly wanted to get rid of and to get out of that place. That upon closer inspection, those women were illegal immigrants that could not work, um, you know, were resigned to the home. And I know that my presence and the way that I live, that's coming and going and handling business and accomplishing goals, became very offensive as they spent most of their time in life sitting on a porch watching others live. You see, this is a side note. It's not very often discussed, the envy and hatred that a lot of other cultures sat back and culminated and cultivated on Black Americans. And when they are brought into close proximity to us, it is oftentimes by their choice in a position of replacing or somehow hurting and controlling us. And in this situation, it was no different. Miss Cece felt it her duty to watch me and report my every move and duty. Therefore, this place was never an apartment for me, but rather an offset of the shelter lifestyle and continued living, which is living under constant control, being confined, watched, and studied. Again, military experimentation. Miss Cece showed me how she found her housing and her place in the structure by being a snitch. It's probably how she got out of the shelter system, and reporter of people in her same position, a traitor to other women. And my stay there, her role was no different. Both her and Miss Carlene and Miss Nora found it a duty and obligation to protect Lester at all costs and enable Lester in every which way to rule. And so these women were his prisoners, and he utilized them he couldn't destroy shit when it came to me, but to sabotage and delay me. And that worked for a time, as I'm back in the shelter in Manhattan, but in the shelter nonetheless, after again being obsessed after by people in close proximity to me. All of this highlights why I have to live by myself and be my own woman, and the victim that I become in circumstances such as these, and being the woman that I am, and that is high-minded and principled and righteous. People they can't help themselves. They have to gravitate and somehow attach themselves to me and try to destroy me, whether in housing or in the shelter or in the workplace or in a relationship. It's always been the same. And when you see me, people would never imagine these things and these obstacles and struggles that come with being me and looking like this. And if you only knew, you might not envy that girl that walked by and made you say, fuck her. She's so pretty and life is probably doing her so much better and she's getting this and that. Nah, it's a special hatred reserved for women like me, because I'm not sitting back getting pregnant or marrying for security and purpose and a place to stay in security. I'm cultivating it for myself and educating myself and situating myself. There's a special struggle reserved for those women, and obstacles and mountains placed before those women, and punishments for not bowing down to male supremacy, right? You should be owned is the way the world feels. And so if you will not, we're going to make it even harder than we make it for a man on you. And this is the battle that I walk every day of my life. You guys are just getting to witness it. Welcome. Welcome to my constant reality and why I don't age. This shit keeps me young and vibrant, and I'm never gonna stop, right? And so here we are. And the next time you see me, that's only gonna be in my own apartment, and I'm documenting why right here and now.